the key is why India needs safeguard duties on steel imports. That's the crux that we're looking at. In fact, Mika joins in to give us little more details on the same as well. Mika, over to you.
So, steel counters were in focus last week because safeguard duties were expected, but nothing has been announced so far. Now, the latest news flow that came in was when Trump announced 25% tariffs on all steel imports on February 10th. Now, in terms of who got impacted, well, the countries that got directly impacted included Canada, Brazil, EU, Mexico, South Korea, and Japan. And directly, India did not get impacted because of our immaterial exports to the US, which was only 1% as of FY24. But now there's a talk about how the steel exports could be redirected to India. India has free trade agreements which could allow more imports from other Asian players, and it could be, according to ICRA, there's a potential redirection of 4 million tons per annum of steel exports from Japan and South Korea initially. If you look at India's steel import picture as a whole, China already accounts for 25%, Korea is at 20%, Japan is at 17%. Vietnam has also emerged as a player at 8%, and other countries aggregate to 28%. And in terms of India has already been facing pressure from imports, especially cheap steel imports from China and Vietnam since FY24, and more imports being redirected to India could bring down domestic steel prices and thereby hurt the industry's earnings in FY26 as per reports. Now, an update on the safeguard duties. Well, the investigation for anti-dumping on China and Vietnam exports to India was initiated in September 2024. As per different managements, safeguard duties of around up to 25% was expected in the first 2 weeks of February. But now, as of today, no announcements have been made. And this is very important for the sector. Anything above 5% would be positive for the Indian steel industry. The safeguard duties could bring domestic steel prices up, which thereby helps the company's margins as well as their capex investment as per Morgan Stanley. And a potential duty could allow companies to hike their prices by 2,000 to 2,500 rupees per ton as per Nuava research. Lastly, if you have to talk, if the safeguard duties do come in, whether it's 10% or 15%, which is what analysts have been expecting, there could be a bump up in the FY26 consolidated EBITDA estimates of various players. For example, Steel Authority of India, 40% hike in their FY26 estimates on account of a 15% duty. JSW Steel at 28%. Tata Steel at 22% jump to their consolidated EBITDA, and JSPL could see a 15% hike to their consolidated EBITDA if a 15% duty is announced.
Right. Hemant sir, coming to you, how are metal stocks looking like on charts? Do you prefer the steel names or the aluminium names like Nalco, Vedanta?
Okay, I'll just take first 30 seconds, Somit, to run a brief about the Nifty Metal Index, Somit. We've been moving sideways. There is relative strength coming in. For the last 6 weeks or so, we've held, and the levels, the lows haven't been broken, Somit. So a little bit of relative strength coming in. If you look at international copper, it's on a tear. It looks good, probably for the next few months or maybe even half the year. So that's the setup internationally. Over here, like you mentioned, Hindalco is something which I used to like, but it has had a move of sorts. But even a Tata Steel, I mean, they've all made bases of some sort. So difficult to differentiate between a Hindalco, Nalco, and a Tata Steel and maybe Vedanta. But generally speaking, they all seem better. I think steel looks slightly better than alumina right now, relatively. Somit.